Hey everybody, before we get the video started, I just want to say I've made a Discord server. It's not anything special right now, it's just somewhere if you want to like question me on something directly, you know, shoot the shit, post memes, send me ideas, or like just talk, whatever, it's there. Links in the description. If you're interested and you want to mess about, join up. On to the video. Before we begin, I'd like to say I've designed some guns that don't have any concept of the words no, please, stop, or I worked really hard on this ship, please don't kill it. Hello everybody, my name is Brenzo, and today we're making the guns. Now, you only see 3 here, and that's because I've only done 3 guns. In this video, we're going to make the last gun. Or rather, we're probably going to take one of these guns and make it better, and make 2 of them. So I've decided on ammo types, and gun types, and most importantly, I've heard you, viewer. I've heard you, people who actually watch and listen to the questions I ask in the video. I've heard you. You want big. You want huge. You want massive. You want DACA. I've done it. 4 barrels. Against my better judgment and my wishes, I've made these guns 4 barrels. And there's going to be 4 of these. You do the math. I can't, but it's probably 16 barrels total. That's a lot of barrels. And, spoiler alert, I'm not going to show you what these guns are yet, but I will tell you, on average, each barrel has about 60 to 80 firepower. If you can do basic math, you can tell that's about around 300 per gun. We have 4 guns. This ship is going to be disgusting. It's going to melt anything. It's going to just destroy it. I tested these 3 guns, of which I'm not going to tell you what they are yet. But just these 3, not even the 4th. Just these, which I consider one of them's probably incomplete. One of them could probably be better. One of them is really good. I consider these guns okay. I tested against the Megalodon, dead in 3 minutes. It had lambs. I turned the lambs on. I let it use everything it had to try and get rid of these shells. They did nothing. These guns fire so many shells. Or at least the one that obviously has 6 barrels per barrel. It's a lot of barrel. It fires so many that you simply can't defend against these with lambs. You can't defend them against lambs, so APS can't shoot down APS. Lasers can't shoot them down. Wait a minute. How are you going to defend against this? These are absurd. So, let's get into ammo and shell types. And let's take you through these guns. You want shells for your gun. How do you figure that out? What should you use? What's good? What's bad? These are all phenomenal questions. Depending on what you're making, if you're making like a big battleship, heavy cruiser, light destroyer, little tiny frigate, depends on what you make, right? Since I'm building a battleship, we're going to talk about battleships. Battleships can take advantage of the tendency of chemical shells to scale with size. That is to say, HE tends to do better the bigger it is. Because HE, besides its many random tendencies that I'll probably leave a link in the description for a document that I had helped me out, HP, or HE rather, does more damage to stuff, or at least it doesn't get reduced damage to things when it has more damage than their health. So if you have I think heavy beams are like 6,000? I don't know. I know metal beams are 1680, somewhere in that, or somewhere close to that. If you have HE that does less than 1680, it's not going to do full damage. If you have more than 1680, now we're cooking. So, big battleship, chemical round scale very well. So naturally, we have pure HE, pure frag, pure flak, although why? And heat and hesh as our main vanilla options. If you want to get spicy, we have things like APHE, AP heat, AP frag, and what else? I guess you could do AP hesh. Can you? I don't know if there's a secondary charge for that. Nope, you can't. Never mind. I lied. So, we're building this gun. So those are our choices if we want chemical. Other good choices when building big battleships, since you can make huge shells, you can make shells that go really stinking fast. So hollow point's a good choice, especially if you're making railguns. Sabo's a good choice, especially if you're making railguns. So those are kind of what I consider good. EMP has its usage. You can make AP EMP if you're a real spicy boy. But most people tend to insulate their stuff. So in my mind, if you want AP EMP to work, you have to directly hit something with the EMP charge, which is like, I'd rather just hit it with HE than EMP at that point if I'm getting right up on the AI. But anyway. So let's just talk chemical shells then. Chemical shells seem to be a good natural fit. They scale well with size. Battleships are big. So let's design it. So the first thing you have to consider is what size autoloader are you going for? In my case, I'm going for 7. So pretty easy choice, clip length required. We're going for 7. So let's just max it out and see. Alright, well at 500 millimeters we still have more space, so let's add more stuff. Part count. This is the most important thing you can see when you're trying to optimize your shells. Now, there are hard and fast optimum shells, which I'll probably also link in the description to a spreadsheet that has all those. But if you're just kind of freewheeling and making up your own shells like I like to do, then pay attention to shell plus casing length. Very, very important thing, because that's how you're going to get the optimum gauge and optimum length of your shell. So, the shell already looks pretty good. It's APHE, which is insanely meta right now. But I have a railgun. So let's design this around a railgun. So, with railguns, we can take some of this gunpowder casing and turn it into just a log of HE. So, let's just have a little bit of gunpowder because the Tetris I use, which I'll discuss, tends to have a lot of free space in connectors or coolers, so I figure if the coolers are already there and the gunpowder isn't that hard to add, why not add it and save some rail draw? You can hate me for making hybrid guns, you can tell me why they're bad. I'm still going to make hybrid guns, they just work with how I make Tetris. My main railgun can apply 40,000 draw. Spoiler, I know, you're going to see it, but spoiler, it can apply 40,000 draw to a shell and still sustain fire. So, let's apply 40,000 rail draw. As you can see, muzzle velocity drops, all this stuff drops, blah 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 blah. Boom. Here's the important number. There's a way to calculate how many, pieces of metal you're going to go through with your kinetic damage. I don't know it off the top of my head. The easiest way is to just test your shells against big beams of metal and count the numbers. But as we can see, this is a disgusting shell. This is going to go through several pieces of metal, and it's going to deal 21k HE damage, which is a lot if it's in an enclosed space, because HE has this lovely property where if your shell explodes in a fully enclosed area, it does more damage. Bet you didn't know that one, unless you did, and you're one of the 2 people who told me that that happens, which thank you 2 guys. Y'all are awesome. So, this is kind of the process I went through for shells. I decided on a shell type. In this case, this one is APHE. I said, what's the amount of clip length I have available in the Ragnarok? In the case of the Ragnarok, it's about, I think, 11 blocks tall in the turret well, and so 7 meter 4x4 Tetris, or 4 clip Tetris, which is what I use, for explosive shells requires about, I want to say, 3 additional pieces on top of the autoloader and on bottom of the autoloader, so that brings you to 10. So naturally, that's the only thing I have available. And then you just optimize. You can play around, less HE, more gunpowder, solid bodies if you want it to pen even further and do more kinetic damage. The shell is your oyster. Do with it what you will. I'm going to tell you now what I picked. And it's not too dissimilar from this. So let's get rid of this guy. Here is my railgun shell. Pretty similar, right? It's like I created the same thing. It's one and the same. 4 gunpowder casings, emergency defuse. If you're still somebody who thinks emergency defuses and ejectors aren't worth it, change your mind. Just change it. Don't even prove to yourself why you need to change it. Just change it. It's bad. If your turret gets hit ever, and your whole turret goes boom, instead of one part of your turret going boom, that's really bad. So use ejectors and defuse. And then it's just a log of HE. Just a big log. And an armor piercing head. So as you can see, do 35,000. I did the math. This penetrates about 10.86 beams of metal. So it goes through 10 and has some little spice left on the last one. And then armor piercing 25, blah, blah, blah. 17,000 explosive damage, which is good. That is more than any block in the game, any armor block in the game has health. I'm sure there's blocks in the game that may have more than 17,000 health. I don't know what they are. I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'm not going to look them up because I'm in the shell screen. Simple, right? This shell is gnarly. 314 firepower. Okay. So that's one. That's one disgusting piece of metal that I'm flinging at other less disgusting pieces of metal because my ship's going to be the best. Welcome to the same thing, but this time it's AP frag. So this one is pure gunpowder. Because the last shell, 40,000 rail draw, that's really freaking expensive. I can't afford to have 3 guns that shoot that because my entire ship will be steam turbines. So, naturally, we're losing out in power by picking a gunpowder shell. But we're still okay. We just have to prioritize different things with gunpowder. We need more coolers. We need more gunpowder, which means our actual shell does less damage. You get the gist. This shell here, 800 meters per second, which affords it pretty decent armor pierce and kinetic damage. I believe this one, I didn't do the math on this one. I want to say it's somewhere in the 2 to 4 meters of metal that it goes through and then detonates the frag. This was originally a pure frag shell, is how I set this up. But I actually switched because I noticed that I was leaving damage on the table. So let's talk about that. So let's switch to pure frag. You see here is a whole bunch of kinetic damage. 19,000. I don't know if this gets applied or not when the frag shell hits, because the frag head detonates on contact, right? It makes sense. That's what I believe it does. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, tell me. But I'm pretty sure the frag head detonates on contact with armor, and so you lose this 19,000 kinetic damage. Just gone. As you can see, my shell is 160. And then if we switch to armor piercing, you see this doesn't change, but the actual damage, I think, changes. When I tested this, these shells had a tendency to just explode on top of the armor, or explode on top of the shields when they get destroyed by lambs, or you get it. So by adding an AP head, I added just a little bit extra damage, and these aren't really going to overpen, because it's not a lot of kinetic damage. They're not going ridiculously fast. They're going 800. So it kind of goes in, sinks itself into the armor, and then explodes in the armor, which also does increase your frag damage, because instead of some frags pinging to the left and into space where armor is not, they go straight through the armor. So, I think AP Frag, very good choice. I'm doing Frag because Frag scales even easier with size compared to HE, because Frag doesn't have the what's it called? The traits I talked about, where if like HE explodes in an enclosed space, if HE has a block that's less big, blah blah blah. Frag doesn't have any of this. It's just kinetic damage that comes from a frag. So this one is still gnarly, 160 shell power. Each frag does 84,000 or 8,400. I can't do numbers. 23 frags, 60-degree angle. I could make it less, but if it's exploding inside the ship, I want it to go through the ship. Ugh, excuse me. So I could muck around with it later, but this is okay for testing. This is also a really gnarly shell. Let's see, what's the firepower on this one? Okay, so there's a big discrepancy in firepower there. And finally, we have the butter knife. Or the hot knife through butter, I guess is the saying goes. You're like, wait, this is a big departure. This is clearly a 3-meter long, 150mm shell. What are you doing? Well, my friends, as you notice, this first things first has a super cav base. This is so this shell can be aimed underwater at submarines and at the bottom of the hull. And since it's Sabo, it just picks through it. But 3 meters on a battleship main gun? 150? What are you doing? So, this has enough AP to do full damage to stacked metal. I didn't get it exactly to 48. I'm not going to. I'm lazy. Come on, man. What do you expect? But it has enough damage to kill one piece of metal and then mostly kill another. I could get it to kill 2. I probably will get it to kill 2. That would be about 3,200 something, I want to say. Maybe 3,300. I could probably get it there. I'm probably going to try and get it there. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'll do it off screen. But here's the idea. This is a Sabo hot butter knife. These shells are so small that you notice their reload time is really small. 41 seconds or 1.46 RPM per intake. For reference, these guys, 174 seconds, 0.34 RPM per intake. Something you can and should do when designing your guns is take measurement of how many intakes you think you will have on the gun. This way you can calculate what shells are better by calculating their RPM without even making the gun or the shell. You can calculate their theoretical firepower. You can do this simply if you use, I'll show you my process, if I can not show you the guns. I simply take one of these guys, I fill in the gaps, and if you put this on its own vehicle or something like that, you can measure how many blocks are in here, or you can do the math if you know the math yourself. And say, if this entire bottom layer was just intakes, then we know we're going to have, I think this is like 380, then we know we have 380 intakes. So let's get rid of this. Don't show me the gun. Blink. Okay. So, I know if I have like 380 intakes, 380 times 1.46, well, that's a lot of RPM. That's a lot of damage. So that's an easy way to calculate how fast you're going to shoot. Also, I've put oh, this is the wrong one. This is the one with the stabilizer fin on it. My bad. Ignore that. So yeah. This is clearly leaning towards a high RPM, just knife, chainsaw, if you will, of a gun. So, how about we show you the guns, and then I can show you how I built these guns right after. I'm going to talk about 2 of these guns. I'm not going to talk about the AP Frag gun yet, because it's a work in progress. A work in progress that you're going to run through with me. But let's talk about the guns that I consider mostly complete. First is our workhorse. The main course, the damage dealer, the ship killer. The APHE railgun. Each barrel has about 80 firepower. They're all the same. I use rotational symmetry, which I'll show off later. has a fire rate of about 15-ish. I'm sure I could squeeze more out, but this Tetris is kind of cramped in case you can't tell. So, this is lugging that, let's see, where is it? Huge 1088 meters per second, 17,000 explosive damage, blah 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 kinetic damage shell out at 15. Unfortunately, even though I could have it fire one shell per second at 60 RPM by synchronizing these guns, when you sync this shell so that it fires in like staggered, Lambs tends to kill it. Because these shells aren't going at like 1500, 1600 like other absurd railguns, which are, you know, better. But these are going more normal because I want them to pen about 10 meters. Somewhere in that range. That way we don't overpen too often and lose out on explosive damage. So we've had to make that trade-off for coolness, for usefulness. And I'll just fire this gun just because it's fun to fire. Phew. So, God, that is loud. Hold on, I'm going to save y'all's ears. Give me 1 second. Okay, well, that's progress for sure. Anyway, volume check. My audio production is pretty low in case you can't tell by my headphone tier mic. So this thing just fires, you know, it's like every 4 seconds. But these shells are disgusting. So I'm going to use the age-old, what's it called? What's something that the black sheep? I don't know, something that you beat up on constantly. The Marauder. Why am I not clicking ships? Because I'm thinking about two different things. Make sure the Marauder can't accidentally blow me up. And let's just kill it. I think we overpenned. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. That's too much damage sometimes. Yep, AI dead instantly. But, of course, that's a Marauder. It's nothing special. I have a better target. Something that actually has armor and can actually survive. The Spectre. I could test it against, like, you know, other SS ships, but this one's just the right size. So you can see here, this thing just pings through armor and even too much. This is really a battleship killer. This is no frigate or cruiser killer. Because otherwise, this thing is just too saucy and it overpens. So maybe I picked the wrong target. I don't know something like big enough, but weak enough to kill. Anyway, goodbye. So this is just a disgusting gun. It does too much damage. It's insane. It's like 320 firepower. Oh, AI dead. Goodbye. Goodbye, my friend. So this thing is insane. The main drawback is it does boast a rail draw of 10,000. So as you can see here, I've kind of modeled out what kind of turbines we need to power one of these things. And, well, we need basically two massive, full efficiency steam turbines to power one of these guns. So this is going to be expensive. This is probably going to be where most of the material costs in the Ragnarok comes from. Speaking of material cost, this gun costs about 60 times 4, whatever 60 times 4 is, and then some change. 60 times 4, why can't I do it? 240. 240 and change is what the gun itself costs. So that's really expensive. This is a really, really overpriced gun. That's why we have one of them. I don't think I will have more than one railgun, simply because this railgun is just so absurd. So that does mean if this gun gets taken down, then we lose a massive chunk of our firepower. But that's kind of a risk I'm willing to accept, because my philosophy with the guns on this ship is he who kills first doesn't need to defend as much. So I'm just making these guns absolutely absurd in any way I can possibly make them. So if they get shot and we lose like a couple 100,000 materials, who cares? The enemy's probably already dead. And this gun's a perfect example of that. Absolutely insane. I'll probably make it more accurate by just lengthening the barrels. I just don't know how big these are going to be yet, because I haven't made the turret cap, and I'm probably going to do that once I make turret armor, which we may talk about later. And then, on to the most disgusting thing I think I've ever made. I think, besides my semi-armor piercing high explosive chainsaw that I showed in the first video, I think this is my most sinful gun I've ever made. This is what I've dubbed the Sabo chainsaw, because it's literally a chainsaw. This is lasers that can't be countered by smoke. The shells go to 1100. It shoots 192 rounds per minute per barrel, with each barrel having 75 firepower. This is a gun that has no rail draw, it's pure gunpowder, and has almost equivalent firepower to this disgusting overpriced railgun. So why not have a million of these? Well, we need HE. Simply put. I could probably save money with just these and then some HE lobbers, but I think it's cool to have both. Stats, it's only marginally cheaper, which is why it's not really that much advantage. The only advantage that this poses over the railgun is no rail draw. The cost is still the same. So these two are kind of our main guns. These are going to be in the turrets that sit closest to the superstructure. That way we can kind of give them some extra armor, give them some extra love, so they don't die. Because these guns are just insane. Together, they just annihilate ships. I don't even know how to talk about this gun. Let's just show it off. I want to show off that this is also double duty as an AA gun. So, this isn't the most dodgy aircraft, but it's the fastest. Spawn in the velocity. Where's my friend, the Sabo cannon? And once he locks on, I think the velocity is going to have a very bad time. Let's just move away from that, because that's kind of painful to listen to. Yeah. By the way, they're like laser accurate. .19. Considering it's multi-barrel, that's really impressive. Let's see what's happening to my friend, the velocity. Slowly dying. As you can see, it looks like it's getting hit by a laser. Like, it's just losing blocks because it kills about 1.5 blocks per shell. So there's like kind of nothing you can do against this thing. It's just ridiculous. It's just, like I said, knife through, or hot knife through butter. So yeah, double duty as an AA. I'm not going to kill the velocity because it would take a while. Because it's stupid fast. And I'll just show off this frag gun. This is not complete. It's basically the same gun, just ported over to use frags instead. As you can see, some rail chargers are still here. But this is a good idea. Each gun should have about 50 firepower. It should cost about half as much as the rail gun, which is 30,000. So, because these are going to be our secondary main guns, if that makes sense. Like a main gun that's secondary to the main guns. You do the math, you figure out how that works. I already got it in my head. Anyway, these are that frag shell show off earlier, just AP frag. About 18 rounds per second. Nothing special. Goes through about 1-2 meters of metal and then pings frag into the enemy. So what you want to see before we get into how to build such disgusting atrocities against against ship kind as these, let's kill something. I think my target today is, well, the Megalodon, because I want to show you that lambs can't save you where we're going. So the Megalodon seems to need a couple seconds to charge up its lambs, so I'll give it that. Of course, it can't kill me, I have God mode on, but we'll give it some time to charge up. Anyway, alright. Let's have fun, Mr. Megalodon. I want to kill this turret. Yup, okay, there's half of it. Okay, there's the other half. That's essentially dead. Okay. you can see the only shot that the lambs are killing are the shots that get deflected. And of course, we're going to deal with that. We're going to have disruptor shields. Oop, kick my mouse. We're going to have disruptor shells, which are going to prevent that from happening where possible. But yeah, as you can see, the Megalodon kind of doesn't have turrets anymore. I wonder why. In fact, let's make it not move anymore. Because, you know, we have a Super Cav Sabo. Yep. Okay, goodbye. 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 And there we go. Alright, now let's watch as the Sabo does its work. I don't know about you, but this just is the closest you can get to a laser with a weapon. I've tested this against frontsiders that have, like, just pure HA wedges, like the singularity up front. Doesn't care. Melts through them just the same. It just annihilates them. They cease to exist. And yeah, you can tell in the top right corner we're doing explosive damage that the Megalodon's lambs never really did anything. And we kind of just carved through it like butter. So the only thing that can really defend against these absurd guns, of which I'm missing one by the way, there's supposed to be 4. The only thing that defends against these absurd guns is shields. And if we have disruptor rounds to turn shields off, which hopefully at 100%, I'm going to have to experiment with that in the video on secondaries, I don't see how you reasonably stop these guns. I don't see a way that you stop this from killing you without just killing it first. And don't even think about sending like giga lasers into the turrets because I'm going to have it dispense smoke on spawn. So like, I'm kind of challenging everybody. Once this is done, if you can make something that kills the Ragnarok, props to you, within its price range. In fact, we'll talk about that more at the very end of this build series. But yeah, as you can see, the Megalodons had better days. Oh, it's even AI dead. I don't know how long that is, but you know because you can look at when it died. It was at 80% when it died. Of course, I was probably pointing at the AI, but... Oops, don't lag me out, sir. That's kind of disgusting. So, these guns are gnarly. They're going in the Ragnarok. These two for sure. These are going to be our primary guns. These are just too insane to not use. I've outdone myself. I've created something that I think is an actual sin, an actual crime. I think I should be taken into the back corner of the prison and left there to rot for what I've done. Because this alone is just disgusting. It's ugh. Let's see how we make these. Before I get in the building, I have to say, I must eat my words from earlier. I went to sleep in between recording this, and I was thinking about the guns, and I realized I had never tested if gunpowder shells explode when they get hit or not. I always just assumed, they probably don't. Well, turns out they do. So this gun now has ejectors, so it's lost like 5 or 8 firepower because it's dropped like 10 RPM. Oh well. It's better now. Onto the building. So, how did I build these big old battleship guns? Well, step 1 is understanding the types of Tetris we can use. What's Tetris? If you have no clue, it's literally just the process of cramming as much useful components into a turret as possible and finding the most efficient ways to do it repeatedly. So with APS, there's 2 main types of Tetris, which I'll show off real quick. Just using, make sure it's the right order. So there is 3-clip Tetris, which looks like this. And then, I'm not using the right part, whatever. You get how it works. Then there's 4-clip Tetris, which looks like this. I use 4-clip Tetris because it's just easier to cram more stuff into. Basically, 4-clip Tetris is like, I think 10 to 20% more efficient than 3-clip. something like that. It's not very much, but I just find it easier to use. So I'll just show you what actual 4-clip Tetris looks like. Also, within this Tetris, there are two types. There's pure railgun Tetris and then explosive type Tetris, which includes what I've recently learned, gunpowder and chemical shells. If you have any of those components in, you need explosive Tetris. So I'll do railgun kinetic Tetris here. This is for shells that are just pure railgun, pure kinetic. This is the Tetris you can do. So let me show it off. You just need 5 autoloaders, and there you go. That's 4-clip Tetris for rail kinetic. Now, for anything with explosive parts in it, you need to add a, where is it? An ejector. So, you add an ejector, and we still need 5 ammo intakes for sustained fire, so 1, 2. Now you think, oh, why don't you add them up here? Well, because you need a connection point to get your Tetris to all meld together, so you can't just fill this up with intakes because you wouldn't be able to connect your autoloader anywhere. So to do that, we're just going to pop a cooler on top, and then we still need, oh, we have one more space. We still need 2 more intakes, so 1, 2, and then we have extra space, so we'll just cram in recoil. So this is what I call explosive 4-clip Tetris. You can just prefab this, and I'll just set up a prefab real quick. And this is like 5 high. Is it? Nope. God, mouse building is not my forte. Oh, I messed up. There we go. So this is obviously 3 meter. I just picked arbitrarily. I'm not going to use 3 meter in the next version of the gun, but this is to just show it off. So, how do you make a turret with this? Oh, easiest way. Grab a turret template from sub-objects. Grab a turret, actually. Oh, wow. I have to actually clear it out. Whoops. Just toss a turret in here. And then with your, oh, I guess the game took that away from me. So regather this. This is a real fly-by-wire video. This is why I don't record me building things, because it's interesting content, to say the least. What the? Oh my god. Sub-objects. Okay. Cool. And then you just kind of take this, and 4-clip Tetris fits in this pattern, where it staggers off. So if any direction, you go down 2, 1, 2, and across 1 in any direction. And then you just fill up your turret. Eventually, you're going to have parts that go over the side of the turret, like, let's just make that happen by accident or on purpose. You never should get rid of your ejectors. So like here, this part goes off the turret, so you just shave it off. And it's perfectly fine to do that. But do not shave off your ejectors. Whatever you do, make sure your autoloader has its ejector at all costs. Do not shave that off. So so that's how you do 4-clip Tetris. What was my actual process for making these guns? Well, let's show it off. Here we go. So this is how I set up my basic turrets. You'll notice that the turret is actually back set, or like the circle is back set by 1. That's because since turrets are essentially front-siders, and you want them to be perfect circles, I've backset the turret such that the front can have 1, 2, God, I hate keyboard building, can have 5 meters of armor and still be a perfect circle, while the back has 1 meter of armor. You can kind of imagine, you know, that will be a completed circle. Or it's like maybe 3. It's something like that. It's backset such that I can have more armor in the front than I have in the back. Because turrets are front-siders, they're always pointed at the target. So you want to armor the front of the turret more heavily than the back of the turret. I'll talk about that a little more deeply when I do turret armoring at the end of this video. which is not the focus of this video. But anyway, so you've got your Tetris. I prefabbed 7 meter because that's what we're using here. And since I'm doing quad barrels, you just want to take your turret and divvy it in the quads. In this case, I use the 17 by 17 prefab, but the turret is actually 19 by 19. It doesn't matter. You just you just go to where the metal is instead of the alloy. But anyway, and so you just do your little pattern like this. Boom. See? So you can kind of get what's going on there, right? So I'm going to fill this out and come right back. I fill this out and kind of come to the conclusion that this is probably not going to be much better than the original one I've set up. But, oh well, we'll figure it out. Why are you not connected properly, my friend? Did I set these up wrong? BRB. I forgot I never flipped my ejectors on that old Tetris. I fixed it. Oh well. Anyway. So here we go. We see it's done. This is essentially the same thing as here, but I'll see if I can optimize it later. You'll notice we have a lot of empty space, like here. If you have rail guns, you typically would fill these with rail chargers. If you have too much recoil, you'd put recoils over here. I don't know what our issues are yet, so I'm just going to put coolers, which is just an easy way to fill it up. If you don't need coolers, you don't need recoil, you don't need anything, you don't add anything here. So we'll actually come back and see what we need once we have the gun set up. So yeah, always try and use your empty space. Otherwise you're kind of wasting volume efficiency. But I mean, if you can't do it, you can't do it, is my philosophy. So do what you can. And then in here, we can actually even add recoil absorbers here, because this is also empty space that we're not going to use otherwise. So just a bunch of recoil. You could add rail chargers here if you were feeling frisky and you were out of space elsewhere. Since this will be a gunpowder gun, all we need is recoil absorbers. Yep. And then we simply tack on an APS piece just to see what she's got. And since this one's going to be one of my frag guns, ooh, go the right way, please. These will actually be bullpup like this, where the barrel is behind the rest of the gun. But just for now, this one is just going to be here, just for testing. So I can actually add gauge increasers in here. Let's do that. That's a good use of space. How much more? There we go, 500. And sinus. Where's my AP frag? I think you're my AP frag. Yes, you are. I believe you're 492 was your gauge. Yes. So, there we go. That's how you make a quad gun, or at least one section of a quad gun. So as we can see here, we're actually way overcooled, and we are slightly under recoiled. So we can actually fix that. So let's get rid of some of this cooling, because cooling's expensive and we want to save materials. But we can use this negative space formed by this wall here, because there doesn't need to be armor here, so there's not going to be. And add 8 meter recoil, and there we go. And I guess we could keep the wall since we only need one 8 meter recoil. So there we go. That's how you make this gun. It's pretty simple, honestly. You just pick your Tetris, pick your shell, pick your appropriate type of Tetris, and then let her rip. I'm actually going to get rid of these coolers because they're unessential. So I am wasting space here, but that's okay if we don't really care that much, which I don't. Make sure I am fully cooled. Yep, auto and limits. Okay. Next, got to get rid of this because we don't need this guy quite yet. To make quad barrels, we're going to take advantage of something called rotational symmetry. which I guess not take advantage, it's really basic. Get a prefab, set it to however long and tall and wide your turret is. In my case, it's 9 by 9 by 9 by something. And, oops, a little taller than that. Height. Correct. Then capture prefab. Then go over here. Turn it 90 degrees. Make sure it's aligned, and boom. And turn it 90 degrees. Make sure it's aligned, and boom. And turn it 90 degrees. You kind of get what's going on, right? And there's a quad barrel turret. All you have to do is add barrels, and it is done. That's how these guns are made. And just for comparison's sake of the gun that I built with y'all versus the gun that I just converted from the railgun, this one has 49 firepower, this one has 54, this one has fire rate of 18.5, this one fire rate of 20.3. Success, I think. Yep, everything else is identical otherwise. So welcome to the official main guns, for now, unless I change them later, of the Ragnarok. We have the Sabo chainsaw. It's boasting about whatever 70 times 4 is. Handy dandy calculator. 1 second. 71 times 4. 284 firepower. This one's at about 320. These guys at 54 times 4. Wow, I'm really bad at math. 216 respectively, because these are the same. We're looking at 1,000 firepower in main guns alone. And mind you, these guns are no slouches. They're not, like, slow at all. Like, we can absolutely annihilate some stuff. Like, I want to see if I can kill a plane. Like, a really evasive plane. I don't know who has really evasive planes besides, like, the Hake. Let's see. I don't know what the Falcon Squadron is. See if I can kill him. Oh, no. God mode, please. Please. Okay. Not that I'm going to make these gun target planes, but like, I just want to prove to myself that we can kill something fast, even with these big things. Okay, and there's one. And goodbye, other one. We can't really long distance fast things with these, but that's whatever. Complementing these main guns, we're gonna have some secondaries. I'm not quite sure what the secondaries are yet. I'm thinking we want something to peel off era, and we also want something to turn off shields. So we'll probably have a bunch of some Hesh and some, what are they called? Oh, you're still alive. Well, prepare to die. And probably some disruptor guns. That's probably what we need, so that's probably what we'll go for. I'll just despawn you, I don't feel like killing you. And then we'll probably have some missiles, not a lot, because missiles are expensive, and these guns are already expensive. I think the cheapest gun, being the frag, is, let's see, the frag turret is 140, the chainsaw turret is 213, and the rail turret is 240. Not including armor. Which, this video is getting pretty long, so I'm going to make armor on my own time, and then I'm going to show it off to you in the next video as a little side piece. So, go out there and make you some ridiculous, insane, sinful guns. And I'll be here working on the Ragnarok, and I'll see y'all next time. Oh, and like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. Please, I'm begging you. Please, I'm on my hands and knees.